We're seeing headlines of AMD exec hints at AI-powered upscaling, AMD FSR using AI in the works. Let's talk about this. Lots of other news stories to get to as well, but I think this is absolutely huge news if this ends up delivering, because AMD's FSR, I mean, in essence, does what DLSS does. It takes the same types of inputs, it takes temporal data, motion vectors, all of that, and it uses that to reconstruct an upscaled image. So you run your game at a lower resolution internally, and it tries to make it look like you're playing at a higher resolution. The problem is that in most games, DLSS does a better job. If you look at a lot of my recent head-to-head reviews, I have to continually point out that, okay, if an AMD GPU is offering, about the same performance, but, using DLSS quality versus FSR quality, but the AMD image quality is like kind of sparkly in the street, loses some temporal stability. There's two Daniels flying around the screen right now. Anyway, the point is that it has some issues. It could be improved, and I think that this is a more meaningful advantage for NVIDIA even compared to like a ray tracing advantage, because a lot of games or gamers might optimize graphic settings, which might mean, okay, I don't want to lose a huge chunk of my performance for certain ray tracing effects. But speaking of optimizing performance, a lot of people will take a small image quality hit to massively boost performance by kicking on quality level upscaling, especially if the hit to image quality is pretty small. But the hit to image quality for FSR tends to be a bit bigger, which then can make that a pretty big, selling point issue on the hardware. Now, there's other upscalers out there, like I pointed out in recent reviews. AMD's FSR, even compared to something like TSR, is often TSR's Unreal Engine 5's kind of built-in upscaler, but so again, it has to be in an Unreal Engine 5 game. But when I'm looking at them side by side here in RoboCop, again, I don't know how much this comes through YouTube compression, doubly so, because I'm just showing another YouTube video through the YouTube compression. But the image on the left here with FSR, the street, the car grills, the chain link fences, things like that, less stable. And that's even up against TSR. Now, Intel has their own XeSS technology, which again, like DLSS, has some machine learning training as part of that upscaling process. So a lot of people, myself included, have been saying that the biggest thing AMD needs to work on at this point to compete with NVIDIA is getting their FSR upscaling on par with DLSS upscaling. Now, over time, they've made big improvements, right? They started out with FSR 1 upscaling, which was just spatial. It didn't use previous frame data. Then they did get FSR 2, and it's had a few updates. And then they've moved into, FSR 3 FSR 3 isn't even upscaling. They're trying to compete with frame generation, but we haven't got an update to that baseline upscaler in a while. And a week or so ago, we had a bunch of news about, maybe Microsoft's doing their own thing with DirectSR super resolution. But I do want to say that as I discussed in that video a week ago, DirectSR, the way it was described, to me sounded like there was a good chance that this was actually just a kind of a wrapper to make it easier for game developers to just say, okay, well, we're going to have this plugin, and then XeSS, FSR, DLSS, all the stuff will just work with that. So we'll just set it up for all of the outputs that those need by supporting DirectSR. Now, again, so that was kind of my take on that. Was that probably wouldn't be a competing upscaler the way it was worded, although it could have been. But it looks like we're getting confirmation from Microsoft that this is definitely just more of a plug-in to allow it to be easy to use all of those technologies for developers, which is nice. But that also means that, again, if AMD is going to compete more directly with DLSS upscaling quality, which, like I said, I think is a very big deal, they are going to need to develop something themselves. And that's where we're now hitting this headline: AMD exec hints at AI-powered upscaling. So what is this hint exactly? So I'm getting this information from videocards.com. All of my sources will be in the video description. But it's looking like they are getting it from this YouTube video here, Competition in AI Compute with AMD CTO Mark Papermaster. So in this video, we have the direct quote. 2024 is a giant year for us because we spent so many years in our hardware and software capabilities for AI. We have just completed AI enabling our entire portfolio. So, cloud edge, PCs, and our embedded devices and gaming devices. We are enabling our gaming devices to upscale using AI, and 2024 is really a huge deployment year. So now the bedrock's there, the capabilities are there. I have talked to you about all the partners, so 2024 for us is a huge deployment. So, okay, I mean, look, if you take this sentence at face value, we are enabling our gaming devices to upscale using AI. And 2024 is really a huge deployment year. I mean, that very, very much sounds like FSR is getting an AI-trained upscaling, deployment in 2024. Now, it doesn't directly say that, though, and we do need to keep that in mind. FSR specifically is not named, but it does say gaming devices. Now, remember, AMD does also produce hardware for consoles. So, Xbox and PlayStation, and there's rumors of a PS5 Pro with some kind of potential AI upscaling, things like that. So let's be clear, this does not specifically say Radeon graphics cards running FSR with AI upscaling will happen in 2024. It does not specifically say that. But we are enabling our gaming devices to upscale using AI, and 2024 is really a huge deployment year. Certainly could mean that, and it sounds pretty strong. Now, again, there's other ways you could take that, but this would be huge because, like I said, FSR takes the same kind of inputs that DLSS does, but it doesn't use, it's a hand-tuned algorithm rather than a machine learning trained algorithm. Although I don't know if I should even get into this. Technically, I mean, I think a certain part of the process, like, how do you even pronounce this? Lanczos, I think is how it's pronounced. I think is technically like there may be some AI. Well, I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but this certainly sounds like this is a big deal. Now, there's pros and cons to this because right now FSR runs on so much hardware, right? It runs on just about anything. And so if they're going to have an AI trained improvement to that, the question then becomes, how is that hardware accelerated and how does that affect support for other GPUs? Because right now, like Intel with their XeSS technology does have a fallback support for other GPUs using a DP4A instruction set. It can run on a lot of GPUs, including AMD GPUs. But when it does that, it's not running at its full quality because it can't run at its full speed. Whereas when running on Intel hardware, it runs on XMX cores and can run a better version of its upscaler because it can be more efficient. DLSS, again, uses tensor cores for part of its process. So AMD's GPUs, I believe that AMD's latest, 7000 series GPUs have some type of, machine learning acceleration block that I do think is different compared to their older hardware, although I'll admit I'm not 100% on all the details of exactly what that is and how powerful that is. Could it be used for this type of task? ? And that would be really interesting, but again, that could mean it could affect the broad support for other hardware. So I could certainly see a future where FSR has a fallback to its current version for older hardware, but then can run a better version that has better AI denoising step in it that would hopefully better compete with DLSS and even XeSS image quality. We'll have to see what comes of this. Now, in other FSR news, although FSR 3, which again is technically not, not even technically not, it just isn't upscaling. I really hate the DLSS 3 and FSR 3 I think AMD just kind of has to follow the DLSS naming, but like upscaling and frame generation are not the same things. But anyway, in the frame generation news, it's looking like The Last of Us Part 1, RoboCop Rogue City, and Remnant 2 with AMD FSR 3 headline, although not all of them actually have that yet. So it's looking like RoboCop has been updated for it, and The Last of Us Part 1 is a coming soon. And I think Remnant 2 did actually get it. So, yeah, so it's looking like FSR 3 definitely added to, those are two Unreal Engine 5 games with Remnant 2 and RoboCop. Last of Us Part 1 looks like a coming soon, but videocards.com is keeping this helpful list of FSR 3 enabled games. And again, after the initial extremely slow and somewhat flawed with VRR support launch with the first two games back in September, we're now getting kind of the floodgates opened. We're getting a lot of games added. It looks like we had, more games added kind of in February here than were in January. So it is looking like it's kind of picking up pace. And that's definitely only a good thing. Now, a lot of people are wanting Cyberpunk to get that FSR 3 update, and I was hoping when I saw patch 212 hit that we would also get FSR 3 in that, but it looks like that was not the case. It did get some ray tracing fixes and improvements and some stuttering issues. I think it was helping out with the, do they not have the patch notes here? But I think helping out with the, I think the Intel P-core optimization thing that they had added recently, things like that. But it didn't come with FSR 3. But to be clear, Cyberpunk has promised, that they are working on that and should get it at some point. Now, in other AMD-related news, let's get this out of the way. So with all of the 7900 GRE reviews out, I've been focusing on that a lot the last week. There is also information that the clock speed limits are currently apparently not going beyond 2803 megahertz, but it's being reported that this is kind of an artificial limitation that is apparently a bug in the software that AMD has promised to some outlets that should be addressed shortly, meaning overclocking could potentially get better on the 7900 GREs with a driver update. So that's good news. Also, something that I did report on during my 7900 GRE coverage, but was easy to miss, is that AMD also officially lowered the price of the 7700 XT to $419. Now, that's nice to see a $30 price drop, but the main reason why I'm not super excited about it overall is because AMD's own 6800 non-XT is still available for about $380. That's $40 less, and it performs about the same and comes with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I'm seeing one model available at $380 at Newegg, and then I checked Amazon, and I do see one for $390 on Amazon. So the 6800 and the 7700 XT perform extremely similar in gaming, but the 6800 comes with more VRAM. So from that perspective, it would seem like, well, okay, honestly, I think the 7700 XT needs to hit $399 or less before I'm particularly interested, and even then, I would probably need the 6800 stock to kind of dry up. But that being said, if AMD's AI-powered upscaling was a 7000 series, exclusive feature or something like that, now AMD tends to shy away from that type of thing, but if it was just a hardware thing where the 7000 series maybe had better AI, machine learning support, then, we'll have to see what happens on that. Now, another thing I want to mention is that in the monitor space this year, we're seeing a bunch of big news regarding 32-inch OLED 4K 240Hz monitors. Now, the first wave of these that are QD OLEDs have already been hitting the market now. But later this year, LG's WOLED panels to support 4K 240Hz at 32-inch OLED will be coming in, and these ones seem like they'll also be supporting a 1080p 480Hz dual mode. Now, I was really curious if the pricing would be competitive. Now, it's looking like LG has confirmed price at about $1,400 for their LG Ultra Gear version of this. Now, there will be other monitors using the LG panel, but that's, I don't know, that's higher than what we're seeing from some of the QD OLED options. And while this is certainly interesting, I think I'm still going to wait for these to be out and see what the reviews say. But if they're not price competitive with the QD OLED versions that we're already getting now, that will be a bit of a disappointment. Now, the other thing I've got my eye on with these releases is the DisplayPort 2.1 situation. It's looking like HP Omen Transcend 32 OLED monitor will have a DisplayPort 2.1 connection, but it will be slower than HDMI 2.1. So that's one of the things that you need to keep an eye out, because if you're like me and you've had your eye out for, okay, which of these will support DisplayPort 2.1, just because it has DP 2.1 doesn't mean it's in the full speed mode. It's looking like this monitor, for example, will go in UHBR10 mode, which is not the full bandwidth. With more information on this, we're also seeing Gigabyte's Aorus FO30. God, monitor names are terrible, guys. Anyway, FO32UP2 OLED monitor, also to have DisplayPort 2.1. But again, what are the speeds? I'm seeing, where is it? I thought I had an article pulled up here talking about which speeds these would all be running at. But the point is, there's a variety of specs here. I think this one gets into it a little bit more here. So UHBR 10 goes up to 40 gigabits per second, which is, again, higher than DP 1.4 bandwidth, which is 32.4. And again, the actual speed's a little bit different. But then again, the full DP 2.1 spec could go up to UHBR 20, which would be 80 gigabit per second. Now, not every GPU can even support these yet. AMD's the closest. Their RX 7000 series cards go up to UHBR 13.5, but still not the full UHBR 20, although it looks like their Radeon Pro cards do go up to UHBR 20. And currently, NVIDIA is not supporting DisplayPort 2.1, and Intel Arc goes up to DisplayPort 2.0. But the point is, if you're buying kind of a future-looking monitor for, the next 5 years or so or more, it would be nice to have the full connection speeds available if you're going to kind of buy into that early. So I've had my eye out for that. Just keep a close eye on all of that. Now, in other news, Steam is showing that, despite the high prices and all that, it's looking like PC gaming is continuing to grow. Steam is setting a new record with over 34 million concurrent users. That's quite a bit. What are people actually playing? Counter-Strike 2 is still taking the top spot here. Dota 2 following up in second, and PUBG in third, Apex Legends. So it's looking at like a lot of the big name, shooter games that have been there for a while. Helldivers 2 is taking 5th place now. Palworld has dropped to 7th after having a huge launch. However, 7th place still isn't bad. And I was impressed to see, a lot of these make sense to me that multiplayer games, can keep their user base going at large numbers for a long time. However, Baldur's Gate 3 still, and I get that there is some multiplayer, you can co-op in that and all that, but primarily, single player RPG focus there, still almost cracking the top 10 in 11th place there with 146,000. So that's pretty cool to see. Now, not every game is a Steam game, so keep that in mind, that not everything's going to show up on that list. And speaking of non-Steam games, how about Alan Wake 2? Which will, what I made big note of on the channel, because the fact that it needed mesh shaders to run well, mesh shader support, meant that NVIDIA's 10 series GPUs were not performing well at launch. Pretty much unplayable, although you could technically get the game running. It was not a great experience. However, I'm seeing this at WCCF Tech, but it looks like the information is coming from Digital Foundry, who got early access to an upcoming patch for Alan Wake 2 that apparently optimizes some of that performance. for those 10 series GPUs, and it got them fairly playable, at least the 1070 and above. Looks like the 1060 got a massive improvement. It was certainly a much better experience, but couldn't necessarily always maintain, 30 FPS, would still dip below. But the 1070, on the other hand, was doing pretty well. Now, in other PC gaming news, it's looking like Ghost of Tsushima may be getting a PC version announcement very soon. An insider is saying that we could see the announcement as soon as Tuesday this week. But again, that's not official news yet. But it is officially stated that Sony has been more interested in targeting their PC, ports and PC in general as a way to increase revenue. So that would be really cool to see. I know a lot of people have been hoping for a Ghost of Tsushima PC version, and we could be getting that soon. All right, I've got to get my kids up and ready for bed. So that's the end of the news for today. I'm pretty excited to see if anything comes of this AI upscaling thing here. Huge thank you to viewers, subscribers, commenters, and especially channel members who hit the join button down below to directly fund the channel financially. That is absolutely huge. Thank you for everybody who can do that. Totally understand for people who aren't in a financial position to do so. Now, you do get little, badges on your name in the comment section. It's easier for me to see your comments. Some videos are available early access for channel members, things like that. So anyway, thank you to all of you. And I hope everyone has an excellent day.